What is going on, everybody? It's Conor here. Again, welcome back to the Marvel Roundtable. On this week's edition of the Marvel Roundtable, we travel to the city of Wakanda and explore the deep, rich cultural history of King T'Challa as he takes the throne in Black Panther. Now, does this Oscar-nominated movie for Best Picture hold up? Or is there some fallacies that unfortunately make it go back into, well, the swing of things as far as other Marvel movies? We're going to break it all down for you as we explore Black Panther this week on the Marvel Roundtable. What's going on, everybody? It's yours truly, Conor, hosting of course, the Marvel Roundtable right here on the Horny Goat YouTube channel, the Horny Goat Podcasting Network. Of course, you can listen to us on all your favorite podcasting platforms. Of course, you guys know me. I am Conor, and we are joined by, of course, the copious members of the Horny Goat crew, which we'll introduce them in just a second. If you guys are new to the channel here, make sure you hit the subscribe button and hit the like button if you guys do like these reviews. And, of course, download us on your favorite podcasting platforms, including Apple, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, Anchor, and so many other places. This week in the Marvel Roundtable, of course, is the show where we dive deep into every single movie and TV show in the MCU. And this week is going to be a doozy, as we're actually going a little bit of out of order this time as far as the movies that we've been reviewing so far, as we are going to review Black Panther, Chadwick Boseman taking the mantle of King T'Challa once again, since we've seen him last in Captain America Civil War. But we'll get into that in just a second. First and foremost, I want to introduce, of course, the power couple of the Horny Goat crew. We've got, of course, Heather and JP. What's up, guys?
I can do this now.
Oh, this is gonna be a great stream. This is gonna be a great review right here. I can already.
Well, yeah, doing good, man. Doing good. I'm actually feeling no pain right now, so imagine that.
Oh, you're not feeling any pain. Is there any particular reason why you're not feeling any pain right now?
I'm such just a sweetheart. You can see it in the camera right there, up on the top shelf. The CBD oil.
So much for me being subtle about it.
I do want to say one thing before we start. I remember we had a conversation, and I'm publicly apologizing here. One of our Horny Goat members, I said that I don't think it'd work. This shit worked within 5 fucking minutes.
So you're saying
I joined. I mean, it's still there.
Yeah.
But I'm not in pain, if that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah.
Good.
So, Gina, I apologize. I am not in excruciating pain.
Well, that's always good to hear. So you're saying it's gonna be a good night then, for sure. This will be a fun one for sure. And of course, joining us this time. Oh.
I may have to duck because he may get very animated. And the last time he got really animated while he was in loopy stage, I ended up with a hand in my face because he just went.
Yeah, you might need to have like a bubble.
She just did to me. Like, what the fuck?
You might need to make a bubble. And of course, joining us this evening once again, just as he joined us last week, we've got the vivacious Bobbit with us. What's up, Bobbit?
Pretty good. Ready to talk Black Panther. Fun fact: did you know that the entire city of Wakanda is located entirely in my butthole?
You know, I miss the days of pop-up video from VH1 where you'd have those random facts about, and I think that's one that we really didn't need to know, but I appreciate you sharing with us anyway, Bob, and thank you so much for being here this evening.
I can't fucking understand his mumbling ass.
I can get it. Of course, we want to thank everybody for joining us as well live in the chat. Again, we do these live every Monday night, unless, of course, something else pops up, where we review each and every single Marvel movie. So far, we've got Federico, we've got Tim, Jurgen, we got Miss Metropolis joining us, and Paul Arzola, Alpha. What's going on, everybody? Thank you so much for tuning in. Appreciate all y'all coming in and talk about Black Panther. This one is going to be a doozy. Now, a couple things I wanted to get off the chest here before we talk about this. If you guys haven't checked out the previous installments of other Marvel movies that we've covered up until this point, make sure you check it out. Link is in the description for all the other episodes that we've done. I mean, good lord, we've done, I think this is like number, I have to think now. I think it's like, I think this is like number 17.
Number too many.
Yeah, we're getting up there. We're almost, of course, dangerously getting close to towards the end of Marvel's Phase 3. But I will say as well, I can kind of announce. I guess this is kind of a pseudo thing. We will have our good friend Frank from the Harsh Truth Podcast is joining us back again once we come back for Avengers: Infinity War and Avengers: Endgame. So looking forward to having Frank back on here with us again. But as you probably noticed, we're doing things a little bit out of order. So up until this point, we've been reviewing the Marvel movies as they've been coming out, but this time I kind of switched it up a little bit because technically speaking, Thor Ragnarok came right after Spider-Man Homecoming, and then Black Panther was the last movie that was released in theaters before Avengers: Infinity War. What's up, JB?
Don't they kind of all happen like at this? Doesn't Thor Ragnarok and all die? If I'm right, I'm gonna fucking do a cartwheel. Don't they happen like right about the same fucking time?
In thematic sense, yes, basically. So
I
go
would
do that.
cartwheel.
Go do that cartwheel. You said it. You said it.
I know.
But the main.
And actually, when you looked it up, Doctor Strange and Black Panther both came out in the same year.
Yeah, oh my god.
You all right?
Nope. No.
Okay.
I'm not talking about coming out. I'm talking about timeline wise.
Yes, I know what you're referring to. Yes. So, yeah, technically speaking, those movies kind of all happen roughly around the same time, like canonically. But the main reason I switched it around as far as Thor Ragnarok and why we're doing Black Panther first is, I'll be very brutally honest with you, is the end credit scene from Thor Ragnarok, because it's literally the end credit scene is literally the setup going into Infinity War. I figured it'd make more sense, and that's pretty much it. That's pretty much the main reason. By the way, when we were first trying to pitch this whole thing, or rather, when I was trying to first pitch this whole thing, someone's like, "Oh, are we going to do it chronologically?" I said, "You can go fuck yourself. There's no way we're doing that, because to try that is just no." And now that Heather, JP, and everyone's kind of been in the thick of it, they kind of get the idea, because literally we've had so many flashbacks of different things happening, and I don't even want to get into Eternals yet. We'll get there, but like there's so many things all over the place. It's just, it ain't happening. So instead, we're doing it this way. And we're going to talk about Black Panther, which is a very interesting movie, and one that one of the biggest things that we were talking about this beforehand was the fact that this is, to my knowledge, the only Marvel movie so far that has been nominated for Academy Awards, or rather ones that have been nominated for Academy Awards specifically as highest as Best Picture, which was a bit of a surprise. And it's interesting, which is interesting because that brings up a whole nother kind of conversation about this. And Black Panther, I'll be honest, looking at some of the research going into this, is very interesting, because this is one of those movies that, like, it's another one of those die-hard movies, at least from what I've seen from fandoms. Either people absolutely love it and think it's the best thing on the world, or it's the more like it. There's love and hate. There's very, very few people that are in the middle. But I think, without kind of spoiling too much of our own opinions about this movie, I think most of us are pretty much in the middle, in the middle as far as this one goes. But generally speaking, the first thing we of course do is just kind of give a blanket idea of what we thought of the movie. So I'm going to throw it over to JP and Heather first. So again, not getting into specifics, not getting into details, general overall thoughts about the Black Panther movie.
Wasn't that good? Excuse me. Wasn't that good?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hate it.
Right.
I did fall asleep through it because it bored the fuck out of me.
That's helpful.
This movie is so fucking boring to me. Like, it just bored me. I didn't understand what half of them were saying half the fucking time. It made no sense to me.
All right. Well, we'll get into the plot. Maybe it'll help break things down a little bit better for you. But
it makes sense. This movie did not make any fucking sense to me.
Heather, what about you? Same boat?
Yeah. As I said while we were watching it, when his mom was over today too, because we had a little
she with us.
Yeah.
She was confused as fuck.
She left the house saying, "Now I know why I never wanted to see this movie in the first place." But but I even said it. Michael B. Jordan and Chadwick Boseman actually did really good jobs for the parts they were given. and how much information for these parts they were given in this movie. But I still don't think it was enough to save it and make it Oscar worthy. Now, again, like JP, I didn't hate it. It's not my top 5 of Marvels, though.
Dude, not even fucking close, man.
All right.
It's not even close to fucking any. It almost barely beats Iron Man 3 for me.
Oof.
Sneak.
So, I mean, there's too much of an agenda in this fucking movie. I hate movies like that. I really do.
To save it until we get into the thick of it.
Oh, yeah, we'll into the thick of it. We'll get there.
I'm going to fucking lose my shit during this one. You'll get it.
Well, Bob, what about you? Where do you stand on the Black Panther? Again, just generally without getting into the specifics yet.
Without getting too much into detail, I like it for what it was. Am I a huge fan of it? No, because I wasn't ever familiar with the actual character of the Black Panther until this movie came out, and it's not in my top 5, but it's definitely my top 10, and it's all right. It's not the best Marvel movie ever made, but it's not the worst thing I've ever seen either.
It's over.
I personally, there is a good amount of it that I appreciated. I think specifically the acting, the cast. I have really no complaints about as far as the actors themselves. A couple exceptions. The story. There is a lot of okay, so this is gonna get heavy. Do I think it's Oscar worthy? I would not personally put it up there as far as Oscar worthy, but then again, I am not a movie critic by any stretch of the imagination. Do I think there are movies infinitely better than Black Panther? Yes.
There's movies out there that are entirely better than the entire Marvel universe.
Right. That being said, I think the villain is probably one. I'm a big fan of the villain. I'm a big fan of Killmonger, but I feel like there wasn't enough weight to him in the sense of I wish there was more Michael B. Jordan. Whew, he fucking knocked it out of the park with that role.
So Megsy's in there. She's saying the costuming for this movie deserves an award. Then every other Marvel movie deserves an award for costuming. They're all the same.
Well,
they're all the same. I find no difference in any of them. I don't think Captain America deserves an award for fucking shit. But
I think that what I will also say is that I do appreciate them trying to do something somewhat different with the Black Panther movie. In general, and I'm sure that this is going to be a big topic, obviously, of a little polarizing because of the obvious sense of, hey, this is a movie that has a predominantly African American cast and predominantly features African American-esque cultures and representation. So I'm all in favor of that. I just feel like the plot had some holes. That's really the biggest thing, is that I just felt like it just
I can't agree with her.
Yeah, I just felt like the plot I just wanted a little bit more. I'm doing the Italian thing even though I'm completely Irish. Exactly. I just wanted a little bit more. I didn't hate that. I'm on the same boat. I did not hate this movie whatsoever. But we'll get into the more thick of things here and more details in the behind the scenes in a second. And of course, you guys can chime in. Of course, we have Megsy in the chat, and of course Jurgen and Alpha. Everybody, of course, already throwing out their thoughts on there. We definitely want to hear you guys' opinions on this because we love hearing you guys' opinions. Tim says it's a divisive amongst the fan base because of how it was received because of the political agenda that this one ended up receiving. Alpha says, I always thought that the entire purpose for this movie in the first place was to make a political statement. Not entirely, but for the most part. I don't see that either. I really don't. Megsy, of course, as JP was mentioning earlier, was praising the wardrobe. I will admit, I really like I'm not gonna lie, I'm on Megsy's side on this one. The costuming, I thought it was pretty improvable.
I'm not saying the wardrobing was bad, but if we are going to give Black Panther an award for wardrobing, I mean, Thor Ragnarok, pretty good costumes. Thor has pretty good costumes. I mean, come on, man. You can't just nitpick. And I know you're hyper focused on wardrobe. I'm just saying I don't see the difference in wardrobing at all. They look like they could be soldiers on freaking what's the name of that world that Thor is from? Odin? Not Odin.
That's his dad. You're talking about Asgard.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
See how much I give a shit about this shit? I'm just saying.
Conor, I want to say something real fast.
Yeah.
R.I.P. to Chadwick Boseman. His death came out of nowhere.
Yeah, that is something that thank you for bringing that up. Obviously,
Yeah.
I don't know if what his health status was at the time that this movie was made. I know it was more when they were filming Endgame that things became more apparent as far as his health issues, which just goes to show, I mean, props to the guy that he was able to keep things so well under wraps to the point that like nobody saw it coming. And while I still think Michael B. Jordan was, I mean, I'll be honest, the cast in this one I actually fucking love. There was very few people I did not like in this movie from an acting casting standpoint. And while Chadwick in this movie wasn't my personal favorite, I did enjoy his performance. Michael B. Jordan fucking knocked it out of the park as far as that. But again, it's like splitting hairs for me in this one. But anyway, point being, it was. What's that?
She's just responding to what I said.
Oh,
I don't care about the extras. The extras
right.
in these movies, I'm sorry, in these movies you should not give a shit about the extras. The extras are just there to die. That's it. I'm sorry, they are.
No, it's just that seems to be JP's, but we got to get him a shirt when we get to the 500 subscribers for sure about that. It's going to be a Marvel Roundtable, and it's going to be like a cartoon, and JP's just going to have a list of all the deaths, but it's just going to be an endless fucking scroll of who should have died at one point in the movies. So, real quick, talk about the quick little pre-production notes about these movies, and there's a lot, so I'm going to try and skim through as much of this as I possibly can in a very, very short amount of time. So back in June of 1992, someone very famous had his intentions about making a Black Panther movie and began to work on it by that August, which was none other than everyone's favorite tax-avoiding actor, Wesley Snipes, which I could actually sort of see him. I could actually see him doing that. Snipes felt that Africa had been portrayed poorly in Hollywood films previously, and this film could be the highlight the majesty of the continent due to the title character being noble and the antithesis of African stereotypes. Next July, Snipes planned to begin the Black Panther after starring in Demolition Man, and a month later, he expressed interest in making sequels to that film as well. But in January '94, Snipes entered talk with Columbia Pictures to portray Black Panther, and Black Panther co-creator Stan Lee joined the film by March and entered an early development by May. Snipes had discussions with several screenwriters, but when the film had not progressed by January of '96, Lee explained that he had not been pleased with the scripts for the project. Snipes said that one of the issues with the project's development was confusion among those unfamiliar with the comics who thought the film was about the Black Panther Party. Whoops. So it's funny because like Blade came out in the late 90s, right? So this would have been a precursor to that, and this is kind of when obviously superhero films were not as apparent and not really at the forefront obviously as they are now. I mean, they're fucking mainstream shit now, but I mean, good lord, that would have been nuts to see a Black Panther movie. Can you imagine a Black Panther movie in the 90s?
It would have been as bad as Iron Man first.
I don't know what other movies were up for costume designer, so whatever. So that's my.
But what's up, RKH? Also joining us in the chat, but it would have been weird. But in July '97, Black Panther was listed as part of Marvel Comics film slate, and in March of '98, Marvel reportedly hired Jose Quesada and Jimmy I can't even say the name, Palmati, who at the time were the editors of the Black Panther comics, to work on the film. So basically, it kind of went back and forth, with even at the time in 2005, Marvel Chairman CEO Avi Arad announced Black Panther being one of the 10 films developed by the new Marvel Studios. So they are actually trying to do this as part of the early development of the Marvel Studios franchise way back when they were starting to do like Iron Man and Captain America and all these other ones. So by March of 2009, Marvel hired writers to come up with the creative ways to launch its lesser-known properties, including Black Panther. Nate Moore, the head of the writers program, was overseeing the development of Black Panther specifically. Snipes' involvement stalled at this time as he was convicted of failing to file a tax return, serving his sentence from June 2010 to April 2013. So believe it or not, Snipes was still in contention when the early discussions of this were happening way back at the beginning of MCU's Phase 1. But of course, January 2011, Marvel Studios hired documentary filmmaker Mark Bailey to write a script for the movie to be produced by Feige. And then, of course, October 2013, the metal vibranium, which comes from Black Panther's home nation of Wakanda, was introduced into the MCU. Marvel had considered showing Wakanda itself as early as Iron Man 2, but were waiting until they had a full idea of how to depict it. So it's interesting that this is one of those properties that, like, they really did want to flush out and really have, like, they was on their radar as far as being like, yeah, we definitely want to do this property. We definitely want to do this character. We definitely want to do this world, which, I mean, looking back in hindsight, I think is a smart idea, because remember, back then Marvel was trying to flush out its lesser known characters, and now Black Panther, I mean, look at, you know, whether you know, your indifference to the movie or otherwise, the Black Panther movie has had a huge impact on a lot of people, you know, of the fans of the franchise and outside.
Oh, that's because when they finally did get to make it, it hit at the right time with the back end message that it was giving.
Yep.
With Michael B. Jordan's character.
So, I mean, really, it's interesting that I didn't realize that they were going to be, that they were in discussions of doing a Black Panther movie so early on. But of course, as we mentioned before in previous reviews, you know, this one had, of course, hints. We did see Chadwick Boseman being casted playing King T'Challa, as we saw King T'Chaka unfortunately get killed at Captain America Civil War, which I'll be honest, I think that, and I think we might have talked about this before in the Civil War review, and which you can go check out, cheap plug. I think that with a character like this, I think it was smart to kind of subtly slide the Easter egg in the beginning of Civil War had a lot fucking going on. I understand that, and then we've talked about that at length and at nauseum, and there was benefits and detriments to that as well. But I think personally, for this character of Black Panther to be able to introduce him here and then really flush him out, I think was a smart move. Personally, no, do you think he just had his own solo movie and just? Oh.
No, I agree. It was a good move. However, I feel that they should have fed Chadwick a little bit more information about the character and what was going to be done in the origin story, so that he could have done the part in Winter Soldier better.
Yeah. Well, so that's the now. Here's the thing. I don't know. They didn't really go much into the movie about this, and I could be wrong. But the Black Panther mantle goes with the king. So we saw T'Challa become both king and the Black Panther pretty much at the same time while all the Civil War shit was going on, because, you know, there wasn't enough stuff that had to happen in that movie. So I get where you're coming from on that, and that's unfortunately what's going to be a major problem that we're going to talk about when we get to Captain Marvel. But I think that there was a little arc in him with Civil War, and I think that giving a chance to kind of flush out the nation of Wakanda, understand the way the kingdom works a little bit. I mean, again, maybe that's just me. I'll open up to Bobbit and JP. I personally think that, like, having them, okay, Spider-Man was different because Spider-Man, every fucking knew Spider-Man. But T'Challa was, and Black Panther was, as we even said, compared to a lot of the other Marvel properties, was not as well known. So they're kind of like, okay, let's do this here. Let's introduce him into the real world, and then we'll take the step back, pull the veil, and then reveal what Wakanda is going to be. Because there's been different versions of Wakanda, of how it's been portrayed in comics. So I just think it was smart to kind of like, all right, let's plant him, and we know what we know is going to be a huge success movie, and then we'll branch off from there.
Well, I will say we got an early look at an early bit of information about Wakanda in the very beginning of the MCU universe, because of the fact that they've mentioned vibranium and where it's from
Right.
multiple times throughout the entire universe. So.
Yep. And Age of Ultron was the first time Wakanda was first mentioned as far as name, and then of course the vibranium with Cap's shield in the first one.
So my question is,
Mhm.
all right, so we know that in Captain America Civil War or whatever the fuck that stupid movie was.
You know, with your description of that movie, you're gonna have to be more specific because that's like 90% of the Marvel movies.
We know that. So we'll get to it. I'm gonna wait because I'm gonna point out why this makes no sense right away. Go ahead, though.
No, you
Do you think it was a good idea to introduce him in another movie and
No.
then give him?
I do not.
okay. You just don't think it was necessary?
Come out with this movie, and it just seems backwards to me, and I'll explain why.
Okay.
I don't want to ruin it because you're gonna go over it.
Okay. Bobbit, what do you think about, like, do you think that it was a smart idea for them to introduce Black Panther in this, like, I don't want to say minor role, but really in the grand scheme of things, a somewhat minor role with Civil War, and then have him flushed out in his own movie?
Yeah, because after you watch Civil War, you go into this, you kind of have an understanding of what he's about, and when you get to this movie, that's when they fully explain, what Wakanda is, what the whole Black Panther thing is, and I I really liked it because it's got the continuity there, and plus, what follows it.
What continuity?
Well, like, Wakanda kept getting teased. He kept getting teased. You've seen the different iterations of the Black Panther character. In this movie, you finally find out what that all means.
But how is that continuity?
Because it ties up the loose. Because, okay, they
Maybe-
mention vibranium coming from Wakanda. Well, you don't know what Wakanda looks like until this.
It flushes out the backstories, I think, is what Bobbit's trying to say about
Yeah.
this, about certain things that were mentioned in the MCU before, and now it's like, okay, now we have a chance to, in theory, answer some questions or flush out some histories of some things.
So confused, but okay.
But let's get into it then. Let's break down this movie, shall we?
Please.
So, first thing starts off with a voice from a young boy asking someone to tell him a story, which I don't think we ever find out who the fuck these two people are, now that I think about it.
How much you want to bet it's T'Chaka and T'Challa?
It's either T'Chaka or T'Challa, or no. Actually, you know what? I think it probably is. If I had to guess, it's probably the two of them. But the adult's voice tells a story of what's up.
Macy's going to bed.
So
Okay.
is your
So is Jurgen. Have a good night.
Night, Jurgen. Night, Megsy. Thank you all for coming in. Appreciate it. Always love it. If you guys ever want to comment stuff in the future too, we will read comments from other episodes. If you have any other things about the movie and want to comment later, we can always read them in the next installment. So, but appreciate you guys coming by. Always love and support. Always do appreciate you guys. So the adult voice tells the story of vibranium. Apparently a gigantic meteorite known with the toughest metal, vibranium, crashed in the region of the sources of the Nile River, and millions of years ago it affected the plants, and then later, in the Age of Humans, 5 tribes in the land named Wakanda battled for control of that vibranium until a spirit led a certain warrior to find and eat an heart-shaped herb affected by the metal. He gained superhuman abilities and became the first Black Panther. 4 of the 5 tribes agreed to submit to his power, but one tribe wanted their own freedom. The Wakandans then used the vibranium to develop highly advanced technology. They see the horrors of the other nations and isolated themselves from the rest of the world, and they hid and pretended that they are not industrially developed like a third world country. Ooh, the first thing I'll say is, wow, that was a lot. That was a lot in a very, like, you hear like the many years ago, and like, it's fucking heavy. So a meteorite crashed, 5 tribes kind of fought over the concept of it, but yet a spirit basically said, hey, you're going to be the fucking leader. You're going to be the fucking leader. You're going to do this. Becomes the Black Panther, rises up to power, and now that's kind of how Wakanda operates, or at least that's the origin of Wakanda. This is also, I believe, outside of the Asgardians, the only other time so far that we've experienced another deity in the MCU. Yes, we've talked about Asgards and gods per se, and we've referred to the Asgardians as gods, but to my knowledge, these are the only other like deities or spiritual entities, like, you know what I mean, like that's been introduced at this point in time. But I don't know about you. I was just like, wow, that was quick. I was not expecting it to be that much info that fast.
I mean, I didn't even catch that. I'm not gonna lie.
Is that the part you fell asleep for?
My mom wouldn't shut the fuck up.
But what about you, Bob? I mean, did you think it was a little bit too much, too fast?
Well, yeah, and like half of that they really didn't explain in the movie, because the movie went from that straight to the beginning of it.
No, I know. I mean, I was just surprised they explained basically Wakanda. And there's one thing that we'll get into, I'm sure of it, and the big part that I'm kind of a little head scratching is that like they were able to keep themselves hidden for so fucking long from everybody else. Like
that's one of the plot holes I want to bring up later on.
Yeah, we'll get more.
Yeah.
We'll get more into that in a little bit, but now we fast forward to Oakland, California. Prince N'Jobu, played by Sterling K. Brown, vows to share Wakandan's technology with the people of African descent around the world in order to help them conquer their oppressors. N'Jobu enlists black market arms dealer Ulysses Claw, who we of course obviously saw in Avengers: Age of Ultron, to infiltrate Wakanda and remove a cache of vibranium. In 1992, King T'Chaka learns of his brother's actions, and he confronts N'Jobu, who becomes angry and threatens to kill T'Chaka's loyal friend Zuri, played by Forrest Whitaker. T'Chaka reluctantly kills N'Jobu to save Zuri and abandons N'Jobu's son Eric in order to prevent the Wakandan people from learning the truth. So it's royal Jerry Springer is what it is. Brothers betraying brothers. So this is one of the reasons why I have conflicting feelings about the villain, which I get into, because I think we can, and you guys can tell me I'm wrong, I don't want to speak on anybody else's behalf on the roundtable here. I think one of the reasons that when a Marvel villain works very, very well, it's because it's shades of gray, that there are parts of that character that you can either relate or understand, or in their minds understand why they're justified in what they're doing. Michael Keaton as Vulture in Spider-Man Homecoming, which we talked about last week, was one of the reasons why I liked him so much, is because he had a valid reason for being the douche that he was. Or I shouldn't say douche, but had like his own sense of morals and obligations. And this kind of follows the same suit as far as what we're going to get from our antagonist, as far as someone who is looking to share vibranium with the world because, hey, there are other people that are suffering that are our people, that we could help them, rise above these oppressors and do good, in essence, just maybe not in the most peaceful of ways, obviously. So we already got, right off the bat, family history lesson and Wakandan history lesson right within the span of like 15 minutes. Holy shit.
Yeah, this movie didn't fuck around with that part, and I appreciated it because
Appreciated what?
the amount of information they fed us at the very beginning with the Wakandan history and then the family history.
Fair enough. Oh,
I feel like either JP is like really feeling really, really good, or is just holding everything in for one big mega rant.
well, I really wasn't paying attention to what she said.
Okay.
Or what you guys were talking about.
But we come right down to it, being Star Wars fans that we are, we're used to that opening scene scroll where we had to read 4 paragraphs before we got to the movie. So it's that All that information right there leading into the story kind of prepared us for this.
so too much information in such a short period of time. Now, those 4 paragraphs that Heather is talking about, it tells you everything you need to know in less than fucking 30 seconds, and it's not overwhelming with information.
So those kind of things, I'm not talking about the paragraphs, I'm talking about this part in the movie here. Those kind of things can be, they're a double-edged sword. I feel like on one hand, it helps sets up things because then you can let the pacing of things breathe a little bit more in other parts and other characters and other scenes to some extent. But at the same time, it's like, shit, fuck, oh, fuck, okay, hold on, pause, rewind, go back. What just happened? I mean, granted, like, movies like the one thing I will say is that not all the time, but most of the time, Marvel will do a good job of if they're talking about, if they're referencing a setup at the beginning of the movie, and then it's like, oh, there's a plot twist later on, they will flash back it enough times to kind of make sure that you understand, like, the importance and connection. Again, sometimes to its detriment, but usually it does a decent job. In my opinion, they do a decent job of doing that. Spider-Man was the same way. We had the setup with Adrian Toomes, with him cleaning up the crap from the Avengers, the fight in 2012, and then boom, we're right in the present day. I mean, obviously we had a lot more because of the Wakandan history, and given that this is a very different movie in the sense of a lot of pretty much the entire movie revolves around those 2 big scenes right at the beginning. They kind of had to do that, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah.
But, so anyway, we fast forward to the present day because time travel. I can't wait to talk about that. Following T'Chaka's death at the hands of Helmut Zemo, disguised as a Master James Barn, his son T'Challa returns to Wakanda to assume the throne officially after working with Okoye, the leader of the all-female fighting force, the Dora Milaje, to extract his ex-lovers Nakia from a undercover assignment in Nigeria's Sambisa forest. He reunites with his mother, Queen Ramonda, and younger sister, Princess Shuri, the nation's current technological genius. At his kingship ceremony, I'll get to that in a second. So let's back up here first and foremost. So, typical Marvel fashion, exposition, right into action. Right into an action scene, which I don't know. I actually didn't mind this for some reason. And I don't know if it's because the Black Panther, like, powers or suit, I kind of really dig the concept because you don't, and maybe this is because I'm a fan of Captain America too, in the sense of, like, you don't have, like, lasers flying around or all this or that. It's mostly hand-to-hand combat related. Yes, the suit is obviously enhanced like Iron Man, but it's mostly a hand-to-hand combat. It mostly relies on, like, tactical skill and combat experience in order for it to be really truly, like, it's not like any schmuck could get in the fucking suit and then, like, oh, you can fire a laser and, well, now he's a fucking threat. You know what I mean? And I feel like that opening fight or rescue scene kind of, at least to me anyway, kind of remind me, like, yeah, this is a different kind of quote unquote superhero in some senses.
What I like about this is that it's not the suit giving him the powers. The suit's literally there to hold his weapons, which are the claws.
Yep.
And protect his body.
Right.
Literally, that's what the suit's for.
The only problem that I have with this entire scene, plausibility. Hear me out.
Okay.
I can buy that the suit is armored.
Yep.
Got it. But when he no-sells 1,000 bullets flying at him, come on. The guy weighs what? 100 and again, I don't want to fucking hear, well, you gotta suspend this. No! When 1,000 bullets, well, hold on, Connor. When 1,000 bullets are flying at you, whether or not that suit can stop, there's no way.
You're not even talking about, like, the sense of, like, oh, it's not penetrating the suit. You're talking about just general force.
Again, I can buy that it's armored, and there is stuff out there that can keep you protected from those kinds of bullets. I'm not saying that what happened is plausible, but no selling, it's going to stop you. That bullet, them 7.62 rounds, they're going to stop you. They're using AK-47s.
I mean, I will say that, like, I'm not saying you're wrong, but I'm also going to say this, and I know this is going to get an eye roll from you, and trust me, it's somewhat of an eye roll for me too. Vibranium is one of those plot convenience metals that obviously does not fucking exist in real life, and I mean, forgot they even make fun of it in Civil War when Cap's flying his shield around, and Spider-Man's like, that thing doesn't fucking obey the laws of physics, does it? Because it doesn't. How is something like? Yeah. Vibranium is a constant frustration with fans because it's like, oh, it can literally do anything. It's like, well, fucking okay.
That's where I have a problem with this. This is where I have a huge problem with this.
Which is something else I'm going to get into a little bit later on, as far as another question that I have regarding the Wakandan village / army. We'll get there. But other than that, I still thought this opening scene was pretty fun, and just again for me, it felt like, okay, it's it's got some aspects and trace elements of other heroes that we've seen so far, but for me, like Heather was saying, it's not necessarily the suits that's enhancing him per se, to an extent, but more, it's not like anybody can get into the Black Panther suit and it's like, okay, you have the power now. It's not how it works. At least it's for me anyway. But Bobbit, what'd you think of the opening scene with the rescue of his ex-lover there?
I like the opening scene, and I agree with JP 100% about the whole vibranium being bullshit. Because
it is.
okay,
it is.
Good talk, Bobbit.
I hate to make this comparison, but it kind of look at Batman's suit. It's supposedly armor, and anytime he gets shot, he has to move, or else he's gonna fucking die.
Right. I agree. So, with you guys, you okay with there, JP?
No.
Okay, go. So, by the way, huge fan of the Dora Milaje. We'll get into that, but I really, I think out of all the armies in Wakanda, the Dora Milaje is probably my favorite. We'll get into a little bit about them later on. So after, of course, the undercover assignment, he reunites with his mother, Queen Ramonda, and Princess Shuri. So of course the queen is Angela Bassett. Fucking loved her, and I was introduced to her in American Horror Story, and she is a fantastic actress. Wish that she was featured more in the movie, but as it was, that's just a personal note. And then Princess Shuri, who of course is T'Challa's sister, and apparently a technological lack of a better word, technological Marvel genius, who is in charge of the entire nation's tech department. So she is the Tony Stark of Wakanda, basically. What's that?
And the only one allowed to drop an F-bomb.
Yeah, and flip off her mother, apparently. So, go figure. So, at the kingship ceremony, we see T'Challa is challenged for the crown by M'Baku, the leader of the 5th tribe, the mountain-dwelling Jabari, or Jabari, I hope I'm saying that right. The two engage in ritual combat, with T'Challa emerging victorious and becoming the new king, as he lets M'Baku live and tells him to yield. So, I actually kind of dug this with the idea of him, like, there, this is kind of, again, showcasing the tradition, the honor, the legacy, and we've had obviously Thor when it comes to like a kingdom, and so this is kind of part of the stuff I've liked about Black Panther is its world building, and for better or for worse, they're expanding and showcasing different areas of Marvel. Trust me, there is still a shit ton of areas that we could explore in Marvel, as far as the world or even the universe in and of itself. But really, we've been kind of limited to, with the exceptions of Guardians of the Galaxy, it's mostly been Earth, and mostly like New York and like maybe a couple of other areas here and there. It's mostly been like New York-esque centered, right? Or in that region. I mean, yeah, maybe some LA stuff here and there, but I mean, you get the idea. Basement would be screaming how it's an injustice that there's no Canadian, representation yet. But the point is that to be able to like kind of do something, even if it's like, remote world building for the nation of Wakanda, to kind of flesh out a showcase, hey, this is how we crown a king. This is how we do this. And also the importance of the heart-shaped flower that gives that person the power. I also really appreciated the fact that, like, hey, if he's going to challenge for the throne, You fucking get rid of the powers. I thought that was a very cool little, maybe not even little, but just some like a little nugget that I'm like, that makes total fucking sense. Why would you? Right, because you just fucking kick their asses. Like, little thing I appreciate of like, yeah, okay, it can strip away his powers because then it makes it an even fight. And it's the respect, honor, and tradition of it all. I really don't have any complaints about the king ceremony scene whatsoever. I really don't. I thought it's as far as like, you know, it showcased this. He takes over the throne. It shows the gruntle dismay of the other tribe, you know, reinforcing what we saw at the beginning. Really no complaints.
You want to go first? Or do you want me to go first?
I have a huge problem with it.
Okay, fire away.
And it goes back to Civil War.
Okay.
How in the fuck? Okay, so how does power automatically transfers? Or does he have to be given said power?
So you talking about the super strength?
Yes.
It's given by the flower.
The flower.
Okay.
Yep.
When I say this, when did he have time to go back, get the flower, and show up at the exact same time, and then go chase after the fucking people? Get the fuck out of here. Makes no sense.
Okay, so you're talking more of a plot perspective.
The reason I say that is the king was still alive at that point.
Right.
Okay, so that's why I'm saying.
Okay.
How in the does it work?
So, according to the movie, yeah, the flower. But I get where you're coming. You're talking more about the whole. And here's the other thing too, and I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they stress that it obviously does not make them fucking invincible because they can die, aka see what happened to T'Chaka. But your frustration is more with the Civil War aspect of when the fuck did he get
in the Black Panther power.
Yeah.
How was he able to do that when he was there?
I think the very big answer to that one, and the obvious answer, JP, is that they decided to fucking change their mind when it came to writing this movie.
You see where I have a fucking problem with it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Heather.
I don't mind what you were talking about. I totally agree with.
Yeah, but I get what you're saying as far as the continuity carrying on. Yeah, I get you there. No, hey, you're right. I'm not.
Continuity I call fucking bullshit because continuity fucking died in Civil War.
I mean, it was definitely put on life support. I'll give you that much. But go ahead, Heather. Heather, what were we gonna say?
It's a very good showing of what traditions can be out there for the more primitive of nations and tribes and stuff like that. And they don't do it by the voting system. They crown their king to be the person who is also the strongest warrior of their tribe. So it fits with what is actually out there in the world, with the more third world viewed countries are. So for me, it was a good scene. I wish they would have gone more into M'Baku's tribe and why they were basically outcasts.
Yeah.
To the rest of the kingdom by living up in the mountains.
It is true. They never really explain why they decided it. Yeah. No, that's a good point.
That was a big thing. We're going from here. It's like, okay, why is everybody afraid of them? But yet they're still allowing them to be here and take part in this challenge. And then when we get later on in the movie, again, it's like,
from said challenge, but they just decided to show up at this one particular time.
Well, I guess I'm grasping at straws here, so bear with me on this. My only thing is that, yeah, Heather says obviously they kind of like, and I call that shit.
They never gave you an actual reason why.
Correct. They never gave a reason. But as far as like why they decided to challenge for the throne now, maybe my guess is because there was, obviously King T'Chaka's death was extremely sudden and unexpected and weren't planning on doing this. And I think that I will say that now that I think about it, the only thing I do have a little frustration with is, I mean, yeah, T'Challa got the Black Panther suit, and you could see, yeah, that's where it gets a little dicey here. Because, like, on one hand, you could say, like, well, he didn't have the enhanced abilities of the Flower in Civil War, but I don't believe that because he fucking fell onto a building. So, yeah, so it's like, meh.
It explains why in the prologue. Explains what? What I said?
No, I think he's talking about me with my point to M'Baku's tribe.
Right. Yeah, maybe I missed that part as far as why they, unless it was unless they said something. I think it was. My only guess then would be is that something about what to do with the vibranium. That is my only guess, or they just disagreed on who should have been leader. That's my only guess.
But yeah, from what I remember is what you said about with what was said in the prologue was all but one of the 5 tribes decided to follow him.
You're gonna make me look this shit up, aren't you? I'm gonna have to look this shit up now.
Like I said, I didn't mind the way that they go about doing the king thing, but the continuity of how he had the power before, like immediately. That's why I asked, was it transferred before I said what I said? Or does he have to actually, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the whole...
See, and that makes sense because T'Chaka was so old that T'Challa would have to take over as Black Panther.
Here we go. I actually have the answer right here. Although I don't remember this part of it. But anyway, it said here, 4 tribes, this is from the narration. 4 tribes agreed to live under the king's rule, but the Jabari tribe isolated themselves in the mountains. The Jabari remained far from the rest of the Wakandan and the vibranium technology they relied on. What the fuck? Stop jumping around. Preferring more traditional resources found in the Jabari land, like hardened wood for construction and weapons. For centuries, no Wakandan king ever journeyed to the Jabari land. Conversely, as T'Challa prepared to be crowned king of Wakanda, the delegation of the Jabari, led by the tribe leader M'Baku, left the Jabari land for the Warriors' Fall, which is the king's ceremony, in order to challenge T'Challa, claiming they had spent years observing the rest of Wakanda from the mountains and disagreed with the path they had chosen. So it was a conflict of leadership and ideologies, was basically the reason. So, and yeah, that's what I was saying for earlier, Frank, was the idea of them doing the world building. This is one of the reasons why I did love this scene. But yeah, I think, but I get your point, JP, as far as like the whole, like where he gets the strength from. And if, because it's one of those things where it's like, they don't really, I have to think about it now, because like there's not really, I can't recall any moments of like super strength that he uses in Civil War. There's moments where he's obviously fucking running, and he's like, I'm like, he's not doing any like superhuman strength feats I can't recall any off the top of my head. And granted, it was 3 movies ago, but I'm not taking away from your point though.
Him running fast, if he didn't have a superpower that kept him upright, the motherfucker would fall down as soon as he started fucking running.
He's a cat.
So he had to have had it.
Cats are good at running.
Huh?
I said he's a cat. Cats are good at running. There we go.
We got him.
What? That's my logic, and I'm sticking to it. Bobbit, what'd you think of the king ceremony, the king with the Battle of the Waterfall?
I liked it, and now that JP mentioned that, that's a huge plot hole that really never got explained in the movie.
It should have been explained.
Yeah, like what the fuck?
If you would have told me, well, T'Chaka couldn't do it anymore, that's fine, but they didn't even fucking say that. So don't give me that bullshit that just throw it out there, because I never heard that in any of the stories given. In this movie, did not see it. I don't know. Again, I don't read the comic books. It may have been explained in there, so I don't fucking know.
Well, in different versions, obviously, it was the suit that was giving him the powers. So it's kind of they kind of, obviously it's another adaptation of the MCU kind of doing their own version of certain things. But it's kind of tricky because here's a fun little tidbit too that I'm just going to throw out there, because let's just butcher this and pound this into the ground. Let's say that he didn't take the flower and he didn't have any super strength abilities, for argument's sake. To my question is, Why wouldn't he? He knows he's going up against the likes of the Winter Soldier, Captain America, and enhanced individuals that have similar powers. Why wouldn't he do that to it, at the very least, even the playing field?
I explain it in the movie.
Yeah, so
Please.
that's my that is the part there. But anywho, yes, Frank, yeah, you were correct on that one, Frank. So anyway, we see in London, good old London, jolly good England, a gang led by Ulysses Claw, including an ex-U.S. Black Ops soldier, wow, can't talk, Eric Stevens, a.k.a. Killmonger, steals an ancient Wakandan vibranium axe from a museum. When the tribal elders receive word that Claw has resurfaced in South Korea, T'Challa's friend Wakabi, who lost his parents as a result of the dealer's nations, urges the young monarch to bring him to justice now that he's officially king. So T'Challa, Okoye, and Nakia plan to intercept Claw at an underground casino in Busan, where he will be selling the axe to an unknown buyer. The plan, however, goes a little bit wrong when T'Challa discovers that the buyer is none other than CIA agent Everett Ross, and Claw suspects that the deal is a setup. We did see Everett Ross, of course, as the guy who was a bit of a dickhead in Civil War, because again, this is everything's going to fucking reference Civil War. So, first and foremost, I just have to say this right off the bat. Did anybody else get Joker vibes from Ulysses Claw this entire fucking movie?
Oh, yes. And Jack Nicholson Joker, too.
Yes, yes.
No, Jack Nicholson Joker.
Like he plays a great villain.
He does.
Anyway. But,
loses his hand for a second time.
Mm-hmm.
I did not get those vibes from him.
Yeah.
I meant more from like his persona and his personality this time. The first time he was still a bad guy, but obviously, you know, from Ultron was the last time we saw him. But like here, he just felt like super charismatic, almost over the top, flamboyant. Not that I hated it. I was just like, that's a huge tonal shift here.
Jump. What?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of a. I can't even put a name to it, so I'm not even gonna say it because I'm just gonna think about it.
Well said. Someone please make that a fucking inspirational quote picture on Twitter immediately.
What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find another villain that I've seen in other movies that would fit his demeanor. I just didn't see the Joker style of.
It was. I mean, the only reason I say Joker is because I got this like evilly campy and loving it was kind of the vibe I got from him, where like he loved being like this, like he knew he was evil, he knew he was doing this, he knew he was doing that, he didn't give a shit, and he was just kind of like, yeah, he goes, I got this, and then like he literally had the fucking vibranium in like a paper bag, and he just didn't give a shit, you know what I mean? Like just like stuff like that, where it just like. You know, he had a lot of a lot more charisma this time around, which again, I loved it. It was just like, wow, that's a little bit of a change. But anyway, I also did like the fact that we did have let me just see what we got here. I left off my notes here that we did have Wakabi, who is the friend of T'Challa and also the lover of Okoye, who was like, yeah, go after the fucker because, you know, he
needs to be dead.
Right. So it created another dynamic, which obviously is going to be explored a little bit later on, which, by the way, is played by, and I hope I'm not saying his name incorrectly, Daniel Kaluuya, who is, of course, best known for the, wow, can't think of the fucking movie. Jesus Christ, for Get Out. He was in the Get Out movie in 2017. That was, and he will be, I believe he'll also be coming back as Wakabi in the next Black Panther movie, as well as going to be in another movie with Jordan Peele, which is going to be really interesting. So it was cool to see him. What's that?
No, the white guy, Claw.
Oh, okay. Sorry, yeah. Go ahead.
But anyway, no, just saying was that it was interesting to have another character there that was kind of like, oh yeah, like go get the fucker, and then like, you know, which obviously is going to feed into things later on. Everett Ross, one of two only white guys that were in the entire fucking movie, as far as I can remember, that were predominant roles.
And this is where I have the plot hole to add on to, where you said, and nobody else knows about Wakanda. Meanwhile, he's CIA agent sitting at a craps table going, "You're supposedly the king of a third world country, and yet you're here in an Italian suit."
Well, he did actually throw one little piece of dialogue in that. He was like, "Hey, listen, you agreed to do this, and I agreed to keep your kitty cat suit like under wraps," meaning like he didn't release public knowledge of what happened with the suit and everything. Which even at that point, the shit that he pulled in Civil War, a lot of that was public knowledge. So it's like, I don't know how much could really. That's really the only really big thing of it is the believability of them being able to hide the country from everybody else. Like I get that, like they explain, and obviously they showcase Wakanda as being like under like a hologram fortress and like hidden in the way in the mountains where like there's nobody able to see them and nobody suspects the wiser. But I don't know. I just feel like, especially with someone like a Tony Stark, who is
only run into that fortress and be like, "What the fuck is this?"
Like I understand that like there's different levels of intellect in the MCU and that like realistically Tony's the smartest out of all of them in theory, right? But I would think that like, I don't know, I get plot convenience and understand that it's kind of retconned at the end anyway, because obviously the end credit scene, which we'll get to, but just it made me go a little like, it was a little like, but I also understand that it was more just that fact kind of fed more into the bigger plot they were trying to tell, the bigger story they were trying to tell, and the bigger factor involved of like, we don't want to showcase the world, we don't want to do it. If you think about it too much, it's a little frustrating and it seems a little like, are they able to hide that? But at the same time, bigger picture, I get why I get why they were feeding that in there, if that makes sense.
Right. I can understand it, but come on.
Frank says the world knows what kind exists. They just don't know about their advanced technology of vibranium. The Wakandians have hidden that, right? And that's what I'm saying is that, like, I don't know. Just thinking about it a little bit much, it's like I feel like even after all this time, either that or they did a fucking damn good job of hiding their shit. But I understand bigger picture why, in terms of like the story they're trying to tell, and then why they went that route is my point. But anyway,
I do want to say the actress who played the bodyguard, the head soldier, the general.
I hated her.
I will say in this part,
I wanted to punch her.
I will say in this part, she did really good at acting uncomfortable in a wig and a dress.
I don't think she was acting.
Probably not.
I also want to say, did anybody else get huge Viola Davis vibes from her in the wig?
Yes. Denai I'm probably gonna say these names horribly wrong. Denai Guria is the actress who played Okoye. She also was in The Walking Dead for a while. She was. Yeah, I definitely got that same vibe for her in the wig and everything, which is interesting because she's not, she has hair. Just I'm not sure if she shaved or what the deal was for the movie, but no, I actually loved her. She was actually one of my favorite other characters, to be honest with you. But I can see why JP may not have appreciated it. But anyway, so now we have the setup. They're going after Claw, and T'Challa's like, we're gonna get the fucker, and then of course, the deal goes completely sour. There's a car chase that ensues that culminates in Claw finally getting apprehended, which, by the way, I do like the fact that they actually, try to do some sort of continuity with Claw actually having an arm that apparently can blow the fuck up anything it wants. Unless he's right-handed. I'm not sure how the fuck he did that. What?
It's a vibranium arm.
I was going to say, unless he's right-handed, I'm not sure how he pulled that one off. We see all the craziness ensue with the chase. Ross is seriously injured while saving Nakia and in the attack, as Claw is rescued by Killmonger while in CIA custody, which I'll be honest was probably one of my favorite parts. But rather than pursue Claw, T'Challa takes Ross to Wakanda, where his sister Shuri uses the nation's advanced technology to save Ross's life. So at this point, we're kind of still not sure what's up with Killmonger, but we did see a couple of things here that was pretty cool. I love Claw was like, you guys are late, and like again, it's probably where I got the Joker vibe from, where he's like laughing hysterically while the area's getting blown the fuck up. I also did love the allude to the necklace or the ring that he was wearing around there, so we kind of gave that subtle hint of like, oh, he's more than he seems. But so far, okay, all right, I can go along for the ride, sure, all right, fine, yeah, that's fine. Bobbit, Heather, JP, so far so good. Any other thoughts so far about the rescue or the car chase scene was pretty fun.
Okay, so
this is where every 5 seconds a scene clip, dead,
yep,
dead.
Oh,
okay. So I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go back to the beginning with the Ross guy. He's a CIA operative.
CIA, yeah.
And I've never worked. I've never talked to a CIA agent.
Mm-hmm.
I have talked to an FBI agent.
Mm-hmm.
They aren't as dumb as this fucking guy is.
They aren't.
They are not.
Okay.
Come on, man. They made this guy look like a fucking idiot. They
Yeah.
made him look like a fanboy who masturbates to fucking Victoria's Secrets magazines. Like, this guy had no, like, we're just gonna agenda. We're gonna put this guy in the background, but we're gonna make him out in the forefront because we have to have a token white guy in this fucking movie. I think that's what they did. That's why they did it. Personally. But they made this guy look like a complete fucking moron. And I can tell you right now that them fucking people are as fucking educated as fucking Sheldon Cooper. They ain't fucking dumb.
Right.
That's all I'm gonna fucking say.
I will say that in agreement with the whole JP of they should all be dead by a certain point, there was one particular part. Let's put it this way: every one of Claw's persons in the car chase scene before the CIA rescue, dead. They're fucking dead. There's no way not. There is one part though that I was like, she should be dead, meaning the main characters, was when Claw blasts Okoye and Nakia, and she's like, just like, it's comically, she's like, standing in the, I'm like, she should be fucking dead.
Disintegrated around her. The engine would have gone through her face.
Yeah,
both of them would have been fucking dead. Don't fucking shut the fuck up. No, they should both be fucking dead. End of fucking story. That being said, the woman that played T'Challa's love interest,
yes,
Nakia, yeah,
played Maz Kanata in Star Wars.
Correct. Yeah. Not surprised at this point, with obviously the Disney Lucasfilm acquisitions and Marvel acquisitions, you're going to see a lot of actors and actresses kind of getting crisscrossed between two universes.
Did I not find that part to be humorous? Absolutely. I thought it was fucking funny because they're both just sitting there like, well, that didn't go as planned. And they didn't say anything. It was just funny.
Yeah.
But I cannot plausibly fucking believe anything that happened there. Sorry, I cannot.
I'm right there with. Like I said, the other characters, the other hitmen, totally dead. That's fine. They're written off. Whatever. That's the only one I'm like, I feel like, or at the very least, like severely injured, and she just like comically comes down. I still laugh my ass off. But and
just one more thing, going back to them. When T'Challa, they're coming down into these, I love this part when they're coming into the hologram. Again, I go back to how didn't somebody not fucking run into this
or notice giant
just wandering around, and all of a sudden I'd run right into a fucking force field that's gonna disintegrate me. Whatever.
The only way I can.
I had the same plot hole problem with fucking Wonder Woman too. That's why I said.
The only way I could like make any sort of like attempt to like say like, oh well, there's no way, is because if the technology advanced so much to the point where they were able to completely make them themselves. But it's one thing to make something invisible versus transparent versus translucent, meaning like you can't see it, but it's still physically there. Now we're talking a matter of like changing fucking physics, which, let's face it, at this point Marvel's giving physics the middle finger, so
yes.
let's be real. But But Claws has been captured. I also did like the idea of, Claws saying, Ross is like, where did you get the arm from? He's like, Wakanda. He's like, you think that's the thing is this looks like nothing compared to the weapons they have in Wakanda. And it's kind of that whole like, oh shit, some shady's going on here. And again, bigger picture, I get why they're going with this. But I did like that little subtle hint of like, oh, well, maybe not everyone's on the same side after. I mean, it doesn't last very long. But the idea of, oh, maybe we're not on the same side after all. I was hoping they was going to go a little bit more with that. But ultimately didn't. But Bobbit, your thoughts on the car chase scene, Claw getting captured, and then Killmonger rescuing him?
I thought it was a pretty cool scene, and I agree with everybody. They should have been fucking dead.
Yeah.
And fun fact: the part where like the organs on top of the car is the United Kingdom's Blu-ray cover.
Oh, where he's like on top of the car, sure he's doing the hologram thing of it?
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, I did kind of gloss over that a little bit when we did see there was a scene with T'Challa talking with Shuri about different things that she developed with the, with new technology and stuff, and seeing there's so many vast things. I kind of get like a James Bond vibe almost from some of these things as far as like, right, like the new technology. And this is kind of where you kind of have to like, well, okay, I guess they have the ability to come up with some of that stuff. Like the sneaker, like the sound canceling sneakers made me especially think of James Bond specifically, because I think there was a couple of those movies where he had like the sneakers, which I'm like, God, Jesus, even I had bad dad jokes in that one. It made me roll my eyes. And then the kinetic energy one where it's able to absorb kinetic energy and then burst it back out, which, okay. Cool. I mean, I'm fine with that. But the pilot stuff too. I mean, like that's probably the most believable thing I can believe, because that shit's happening now.
But that's one of the things I loved too with that scene was you're gonna record this for research purposes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't need that footage.
Natural humor and dialogue. That's the other thing too. I'll say, generally speaking, is that compared to even like the most average Marvel movie as far as the comedy balance, it didn't
was a true brother and sister type rivalry going on between the two of them. That was funny as
I do appreciate the acting.
I think that I think in general too, just the comedic balances, there was definitely not as much in comparison. And what that did was, when there were funny moments, it made them funnier, which I appreciated. Like Ant-Man was way too much. I mean, I still liked it, but it was way too much because Paul Rudd. Guardians, it fit because of the tone they were trying to get for the Guardians movies. But there were some, like, I think it was Ultron, where it was just like, man, they really shoved in a lot of jokes in here in this one. But this one felt like there wasn't that many, but it worked for that reason. It worked for the reason of, okay, just easing, and then when they did happen, they were a lot more funnier. Maybe that's just me.
No, it's not just you, because when it comes down to it, with this movie, they were showing a more primitive style race and culture. So with that, there's not as many one-liners and pop culture specific topics that are laughed about.
Right.
So it fit for what the movie actually was.
I agree. What about you, Bob? I mean, you, JP, did you guys think there was like the fact that there was, it seemed to me anyway, less comedy in this movie? I didn't mind it. It just, it could definitely, I could tell. I don't know about you guys.
That one scene is the only scene that I really found funny. I did appreciate the banter back and forth between the brother and sister, but that was about it. As far as that goes, I mean, I didn't. Okay, Bob, just go ahead. It's fine, because I really didn't find the movie that funny at all. If there was any funny
parts, I'm saying, right? I'm
saying there's not that many in this movie.
Even what parts were supposed to be funny, I didn't find too funny. I did the one part. That one scene was funny, but
the bad dad joke.
Yeah, there was a bad dad joke. I can't even remember the dad
sneakers. Joke. It's what I call them. Sneakers.
Oh yeah, when she gave him those shoes, And he's like, "What? You want to know what I call them? Sneakers, because they're quiet. You can't. You can sneak up on." So dumb. I mean, I tell some pretty bad dad jokes, like the 28th bone. That's funny. That
funny.
wasn't.
That was funny. What about you, Bobbit?
I appreciate how in this movie there wasn't a lot of comedy because, like Guardians, that was perfect for that film. I hate it when like a movie's like trying to be serious and like Ant-Man, like it's trying to be serious and all of a sudden you got 4,000 jokes. You're like, the fuck did that come from?
Yeah, or it's just a little too much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So understandable. So at this point, we do see that, like I mentioned before, T'Challa takes Ross back to Wakanda, where his sister Shuri uses the nascent advanced technology to save Ross's life. However, Killmonger, who actually saved Ulysses Claw, ends up, double-crossing them, shooting and killing all of them, including Claw himself, revealing that he is wanting to go back to Wakanda, and he's like, they're not going to take you, you're an outsider, and then revealing what seems to be like the tattoo imprint on his bottom lip, revealing that he is of Wakandan descent. Killmonger kills Claw and takes his body back to Wakanda as a token, revealing his identity as N'Jobu's son to the tribal elders and challenging T'Challa for the throne. Now, what I found interesting here was the fact that, like, he does a decent job reveal, of the reveal. He does the little smirk. I mean, obviously, we all saw it coming a fucking mile away, which is fine. But what I liked about this is that everyone in the kingdom's like, no, fuck you, get out of here. Even T'Challa was starting to get suspicious because he started to understand, like, he was understanding a little bit of what was going on and was kind of piecing some things together as far as what happened. And there was another part too. I forgot to gloss over a little bit when T'Challa took the actual throne. Was him visiting the ancestral plane, where he visited his father for the first time. He does it twice, and he does it the very first time beforehand. Earlier in the movie, I forgot to mention this. This is interesting for two reasons. One, again, it's building the culture of Wakanda and their tribes and their leaders and stuff.
This is the first Marvel movie where we take the spiritual aspect into everything too.
Yes, that's what you took the words right out of my mouth. It is also the first time in the MCU that we are dealing with a spiritual / afterlife plane of existence where he can communicate with past either I think it's past Black Panthers or past leaders, as far as I can tell. I mean, obviously we know he has the one-on-one with his dad, and he obviously sees multiple people in the future. But I'm assuming it's other Black Panthers. But it's interesting that they go about that. And again, it's just a nice little scene to kind of build up, build us up.
I think it's his lineage because this is a plane of your ancestors. Because when we get to Michael B. Jordan, they don't take him to the other Black Panthers. It takes him to his dad.
That's true. Yeah.
It's ancestral lineage
right.
that it takes.
And plus, and just for fun fact, we will hear about other things about about spiritual afterlives more later on once we get to Moon Knight. But this is the first and only time in the MCU up until this point. Again, we'll talk more about other stuff when we dive more into Moon Knight when we get further down the road. But it was interesting seeing. It was like, oh, there's an ancestral plane. There's something like a spiritual afterlife aspect of it. And honestly, even though we saw that, like, T'Challa was starting to piece things together, and I love how he's like, tell me what happened to his to his friend. What?
You knew she was going to ask for one.
She didn't see me have it. I pulled it out of my fucking pocket.
Yeah, then she heard the rapper. You gotta understand, she's like fucking Snoopy.
You want some of this? Fucking little asshole.
Parenting, gotta love it.
Snack by himself anymore.
But I love the ancestral plane part. But I also love the scene where T'Challa's like asking about what happened to the son of N'Jobu, and he's like, I promised the king I wouldn't say anything. He goes, I'm your king now, so tell me the truth. Just little scenes like that I really appreciated. But I did like the ancestral plane part of it too, but then Killmonger, saying was reveals himself, obviously saying like, who I am, even though we all saw it coming a mile away. I did love the fact that like, hey, all the elders, everyone's like, fuck you, no, you don't, no, fuck you, no, he's our kid, you can buy, see ya, peace. And then once it's revealed who he is, there's conflict. It's not like they're all instantly like, well, we got to do this. There's conflict between them all, like, he's bullshit, he's this or that. And then they're like, well, you don't really have to prove anything to him. And then even though there's so much turmoil and craziness, T'Challa says, I will accept your challenge. And he's like, well, we're going to need weeks to prepare. He's like, I don't need fucking weeks. Let's do this now. And it's kind of an impromptu thing. I know there was something about that I kind of like appreciated. And I think that's probably because they did a pretty decent job, plot hole of the heart-shaped herb aside, in that earlier sequence was showing how it's normally done when a new king takes over. And now it's like, shit, here comes this guy to fucking overthrow the balance and, all this stuff. I don't know. I just thought it was kind of interesting that like, it wasn't like a standard where it's like, this person has to come and then training montage and all this bullshit. And even people were like, no, fuck you. You're not going to. And then there was conflict once they actually figured out who he was.
Yeah, it makes sense for the scene because it's just like, at first, like, he's an outsider. He doesn't belong here.
Right.
He doesn't deserve a challenge. Get him the fuck out.
Yep.
But then seeing the ring of N'Jabu and his lineage as well, it's just that creating that conflict of, well, shit, maybe he does belong here. It adds that balance to that scene. It adds more to that drama for that selection of how he's reintroduced to the Wakandan people.
Right. And I also did love, again, the friend of, trying to pull up the names here. Not, God, too many characters I'm trying to keep up with. Where's that guy's name? I'm trying to find it. Damn it all. There's so many characters.
Giannis Antetokounmpo?
Wakabi. Wakabi's like, this guy doesn't know what he's like. And again, with him, like with his frustration of the fact that he didn't kill Claw, and then now here he comes bringing Claw right to his front. He's like, hey, I did what he couldn't, so fuck you.
You'll be my second command.
And yes, Frank, they do go a little bit more into the ancestral plane in Moon Knight, and we'll talk about that once we get there for sure. And so, of course, exactly what happens, what you think happens. We see that Killmonger triumphs in the ritual combat and hurls T'Challa over the waterfall.
Yeah.
Ow.
Movie's over.
Once he does so, of course, Killmonger then takes ingests the heart-shaped herb to gain the powers of the Black Panther. He enacts his father's plans, preparing shipments of Wakandan weapons to be distributed to the Wakandan operatives all around the world. Of course, Nakia, Shuri, Ross, and T'Challa's mother, Ramonda, flee to seek the aid of the Jabari tribe and learn M'Baku's men have found T'Challa's body and are caring for him in a comatose state. Okay. First of all,
Dead.
Yes, dead. Second, I love at the very least that Killmonger's like, burn the rest of the flowers.
He doesn't even think about the chance that he himself might have a child who then might take over as fucking Black Panther and keep his fucking plans going. No. Burn all this shit to the ground. I'm the last one you're ever gonna need.
Whoa.
But Ross explains that too. He was like, well, that's his job. His job was as an operative was to go in and like overthrow these like powers and when he sees a potential threat, he nixed it. Which brings me to a little mini rant about this part of the movie. Why only one? If Wakanda was, and granted, the only thing I can say here is I understand that Wakanda was not going out and conquering territories and conquering these things, right? But, and maybe it's just me. I would have think that, but with a combination of the heart-shaped herb that grant these people super speed, strength, and endurance, theoretically, why didn't they give this to the entire fucking army?
Because whoever wrote this fucking shit didn't know what the fuck they were talking about.
Also, as much as I appreciated them using some of the technological advancements to help with some of their artillery, as far as like, I'm talking mainly just the ground troops with like the shields, the holographic shields, which I thought was cool. I would have thought they would have done more. I mean, granted, you could say that they're honoring their ancestors by doing like, you know, ceremonial, you know, tradition and stuff. Okay. But I just felt like I feel like they would have had more stuff. Maybe that's just me. I mean, again, you could chalk it up to the idea of the tradition and stuff and blah 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 and all that stuff. But I don't know. I was just like, why didn't they just give that to the whole army? I mean, granted, really at the end of the day, it's not necessary. It's more meant for like the chosen one and blah blah blah.
Frank just answered my question about the fucking leaf. He just said because he isn't the entire army isn't Black Panther. So how in the literal fuck can T'Challa eat that fucking flower if T'Challa is Black Panther? See why this fucking shit is fucked up. Whoever wrote this shit is a fucking moron. Because she just left a whole shitload of fucking plot holes.
Well, he becomes the Black Panther's more of a mantle. It's more like like an identity. Like, oh, you get to be. It's like a mask. I hate to say it like this way, but for lack of a better phrase, it's like, or lack of a better example, it's like a mascot. So to become the Black Panther, you do X, Y, and Z.
That's not what he's saying. No, the reason that they can't take the flower is because they aren't the Black Panther. At least that's what I'm gathering from what he's saying. Just reading what he wrote.
Okay, which what I'm saying is that I can get, but my point is that here's a guy who just walked in, and unless you're talking like bloodline shit, but even still, like the tribes had an opportunity to be Black. You know what I mean? Like it's just like
open challenge when the time comes and the season's right. It's an open challenge to whoever is within any of the 4 or 5 tribes to take the challenge.
Right. So my thought, my question is like, okay, theoretically, if it's a bloodline thing, cool. Wrap it up with a little bow, and that makes sense. But theoretically, anyone can take the flower.
And I understand that.
Right. So my question is, why not the whole army?
Because, and that's why I said, and Frank answered that question. So because the entire army is not Black Panther. So again, I ask.
Well, if it's a
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, Frank's saying it's a birthright, which, okay, but
if it were, why is there a challenge?
It's a birthright.
I don't think it is, because I was under the impression, and I could be wrong here, I was under the impression that the Black Panther mantle was tied to whoever was king. And unless the same lineage held the Black Panther mantle this entire time from a bloodline perspective,
if that's the case, then this entire brothers and sisters are going to be fucking each other pretty fucking soon. I'm just saying, man, you're going to have a bunch of people with Down syndrome in Black Panther suit.
You mean they was doing that all already?
Come on, man.
No, what I'm saying is that, like, if you're saying
move it down so they're not getting all of the things from the flower, but make them stronger than what they are. That's what you're saying.
Yes, but on top of that, they don't really like specify that it's a blood lineage thing versus a kingdom thing. It is, at least to me, it was at least left open to the idea of any of the tribes could assume the role of king. Any one of them, because They went through the whole tribes. Even the Jabari tribe came down and said, I'm going to challenge him. So theoretically, if that Jabari guy won, M'Baku, if he won, he would have became Black Panther, ate the flower, and he's good to go.
So again, and this is why I have a problem with this fucking universe. Because if everybody takes it, then everybody's a superhero and it ruins the story. This is why this shit.
That's fair. That's fair.
Because everybody can take this fucking pedal. Come on, man.
And again, all I'm saying, all I'm saying is that all I'm saying. All I'm saying is I wish they made that part a tad bit clearer. I get what they're going for. I get what they're trying to say, and I get what they're trying to get at. But you know, it just that part was just like well, like I don't know. Maybe it wasn't properly explained.
It makes no sense. None. It has to be a birthright. Well, I mean, yes, the two are cousins, but is everybody a fucking brother and a sister in this fucking country or what? Because I'm gonna go play Black Panther. I mean, come on, man. It can't be a birthright.
Remind me to tell a joke when we're off the air later. I mean, Bobbit, I don't want to keep you in the dark either. I mean, am I wrong here? I don't know if you got the same thing because those are the questions I have about this.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with both you and JP 100%. This makes no fucking sense whatsoever.
Well, Conor says it does make sense. It doesn't to me.
I think it.
Black Panther makes sense to him.
The mantle of Black Panther makes sense, but I'm talking about eating this fucking petal. I'm not talking about fucking Black Panther. And again, if they're all, like I said, if it's a birthright to be Black Panther, then again, every tribe is a brother and a sister and an aunt and an uncle. We're talking fucking Arkansas up in this bitch.
All I'm saying is that if we were going that route, there's two things I would have changed then if we were to make it a little bit more like only certain people can have it. And this is just my opinion. Either there's not as many of those flowers available, or there's one primary flower, so there's a finite set of resources opposed to a goddamn field of these things, or they made it a little bit more. They dived into the idea of it is a bloodline thing, and that only certain people from a certain bloodline can have kind of like the super soldier serum. Not everyone's going to accept it, but only certain people have like qualities to them. You know what I mean? Like I would have taken those explanations a little bit more as far as like, okay, because again, I'm just going off of what one information I remember from the movie. I watched this 4 days ago, so I could be missing some stuff. But my point is that there was not enough stuff there to explain, well, yeah, anybody can fucking take them. Everett Ross could have taken the fucking flower if he wanted to, in theory.
So I did not hate this movie, Frank.
No. We're just saying this in this specific part.
You're talking about fucking plot holes here, man. Everybody, see, this is the problem why I have a problem with these movies. Because everybody's like, oh, you gotta enjoy it for what it is. No! If I see a plot hole, I'm going to call it out, and it is a fucking plot hole in the fucking movie to me that makes no fucking sense.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I actually really enjoyed Black Panther, to be completely honest with you. Probably more so than Heather and JP did.
I don't hate it.
But there's just things that I'm just like, well, and granted, there's two things with my opinion about these things and my somewhat nitpicking. One is because I'm a nerd. It just is what it is. And number two, at this point with Marvel, things have gotten so down. And here's the other part of it too. When it comes to the roundtable, my goal with this was to try and analyze the movies as standalone as humanly possible, meaning try to get away from any of the tie-ins as much as humanly possible. Keyword try. Obviously, that's going to be impossible. But I'm just saying is that there's parts of it I'm like, it was head scratching to me. That's the only thing. I actually really enjoyed this movie. I just kind of tilted my head at certain parts of it. That's all. But anyway,
it's plot holes, man. I don't think that just because I'm shitting on a certain doesn't mean that I'm shitting on the whole entire movie. There are some things I liked about this movie. I'm not gonna lie. But when I see a plot hole, I'm gonna fucking call it out. That's all I'm doing. Look. The reason that I'm sitting here is I'm trying to understand the fucking world, and all I ever get is, and it's not from Conor, it's from people in the chat, and it's fine, Frank. I get it. I have to suspend my disbelief. Okay, explain to me why I should do that when I see a plot hole. Do you see what I'm saying? That's why I'm here to understand why people love this shit so fucking much. That's it. That's why I'm here.
So far, we're winning them over, folks.
I'm trying. I'm
just teasing you.
I didn't hate the movie, but I'm plot holes, man.
Listen, there are movies. There are movies that I love. We all know there's no such thing as a perfect movie, but there are movies that I love that I'll still be like, they're like, how in the fuck did that happen? And again, I get it's plot convenience. I understand it's the sake of moving the story along or trying to paint a certain thing in the bigger picture. Like, I get that. I just can't help but laugh at some of these things sometimes. That's all. That's just me. But anywho,
the movie. I just wanted to point that out.
So anyway, healed by the heart-shaped herb that brought by Nakia, T'Challa returns to Wakanda and renews his combat with Killmonger for the throne, which was never officially concluded since T'Challa never died or conceded. When Killmonger refuses to cooperate, his claim to the throne is immediately invalidated, and Okoye and the Dora Milaje turn against him. However, Killmonger is now wearing a suit of Black Panther armor of his own, resists with force along with the border tribe. So while Shuri, Nakia, and Jabari battle, Wakabi Ross, piloting a remote jet with Shuri's guidance, shoots down the planes carrying the weapons before they can leave the country. I thought this was pretty cool to see, like, the holographic plane, like, shooting around. It's a prelude to what we're going to see in Infinity War.
You know, I can believe something like that. Why? Because you can actually fucking do that kind of shit.
The battle goes poorly for T'Challa's side until M'Baku and the Jabari tribe arrive to support him, thus turning the tide. T'Challa and Killmonger's battle carries them into the heart of the vibranium mine, where sonic disrupted used in the transport of the metal incapacitates their vibranium armor. While Killmonger's body is briefly exposed, T'Challa stabs his cousin, and then of course he takes Killmonger to see the sunset of Wakanda and offers to heal him. But Killmonger states that he knows he will then be imprisoned and would rather die a free man, and pulls the dagger out of his chest and dies peacefully. One thing before we get into this part of the movie that I actually wanted to mention that I also appreciated was when T'Challa is frozen and he visits the ancestral plane for the second time. I love the fact that he calls his father out on his bullshit. Do you realize how much balls it takes to basically say to every single fucking ancestor in front of you that you were all wrong? I I'm like, oh, that is it's one thing to say that to your dad, but it's another thing to basically say, like, you are all wrong. I'm like, wow, that is ballsy. But as far as the entire battle scene, I did love that it came down to, like, you talk about a civil war. This is a civil war where you basically have members of them fighting each other. We kind of joked about this, I think, off a couple of streams before. We were kind of like teasing about, what our thoughts were about the Black Panther movie. And of course, one big criticism of the Marvel movie sometimes is the CGI. And what I said was certain CGI scenes are better than others, obviously. The fight between Killmonger and Black Panther in their suits, I didn't mind. I actually enjoyed it when it was like the two of them fighting against each other versus like a CGI versus non-CGI. I don't know, maybe that's just me.
It was just the CGI fucking ancient rhinos with metal armor running through a downed drone or downed ship. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the fucking rhinos. Best weapons.
Onto one. Oh god.
I mean, come on. Yeah, I would,
Yeah, the CGI in this was...
He literally looked like a black blur. Like he was supposed to be the black version of the Flash. In that moment. It's like, no.
Yeah, the fight scene, pretty good.
It's working.
I can, again, with the plausibility of the flying of the ships, with
Mm-hmm.
the guy with Ross flying his ship, I can buy that. You can do that. To this day, you can actually do that. That is a technology that actually exists. Um, yeah. So I mean, the CGI was questionable at best for me. I don't pay attention to it.
Right.
So when I'm watching a movie, I try not to pick out CGI spots,
There were so many of them in
but
this movie, though.
there was quite a few of them. Some of them, like the hologram, had to be CGI. That I understand.
Right.
You know, there's certain things that had to be CGI.
I mean, that CGI was done perfectly, though.
So it was
Um.
all right. The ending, again, this movie was so agenda driven.
He's not at the ending yet. He's just at the fight between T'Challa and Michael
No, no, no,
Jordan.
no. You're talking about the last fight, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. Because all of a sudden, the one part where Maccabi
Yep.
and she stands there and he says, "You would kill me, my love,"
Yes.
and
Yes.
she said, "For my country, yes." And then he dropped his weapon, and everybody drops their weapons, and there's 10 women standing. Like, come on,
I
man.
mean,
I
that's if
mean,
that's not real
yeah,
life.
no. Again, a plot hole. And this is where it got really shady for me because that's like, come on, that's not going to happen ever. And I mean, really? If you're fighting for a cause, you're gonna. I mean, yeah, the one guy might drop his sword or his whatever he was using, his sheath or whatever, but I'm not gonna fucking buy it. Everybody just. Oh my God, he went to his knees. And now there's just 10 women standing. So the women were more powerful than them. It's like,
Yeah, that's a reflection on real world. Um, but I did like the scenes with Killmonger at the end. I think that I don't know about you, but for some reason the detail of like T'Challa stabbing him and then like the vibranium like closing around it, so it just happened to hit the right spot at the right time. Again, plot convenience, I know, but like a little detail like that.
Yeah,
What's that?
the magnetic train.
Right. So it just like little something like that I thought was kind of clever, but I also did love the idea of like he was saying how he's told a sunset on Wakanda is the most beautiful thing in the world, and he brings him up to see the sunset, and then the whole speech of like saying I'd rather die than be a prisoner, which is like wow, that's huh.
That's the CIA operative training, though.
Right. Um but I still love the hell out of it. Rhinos and all. What about you, Bob? The final scene for final fight scene between everybody and the Rhinos and Killmonger versus Black Panther.
I thought the ending battle was pretty cool, and if you want to see past CGI, go watch the '95 Mortal Kombat movie. That aged like sour cream. Like, oh my god.
Do do do
well,
do
the
do do.
second one was really bad. Yes. Yeah.
So then the
I
last
did
part. Oh,
like.
go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Are you going to talk about after the fight?
Yeah, I'm just gonna wrap up the last little tidbits here. We're almost through here. With that victory, T'Challa is officially restored to the throne, with M'Baku granted as a seat in the National Tribal Council to represent his tribe in recognition of his loyalty. Rejecting the isolationism of past Wakandan kings, T'Challa establishes an embassy in the United States to be run by Nakia and Shuri. Of course, right where the scene where we see his uncle was killed at the beginning of the movie. In the mid-credit scene, T'Challa appears before the United Nations to reveal Wakanda's true nature to the world, but of course in the post-credit scene we see that Shuri continues to help a certain somebody, a Bucky Barnes, with his recuperation to close out the movie. So all's well that ends well.
One of the best scenes is the last at the end of the fight scene when T'Challa and Killmonger are on the cliff.
Yes. Yep.
That was actually very good acting.
I think that
Because
okay.
he come to the realization I think all he wanted to do was come back to Wakanda and be with his people, but he got so angry at his father's death that he like, fuck this, I'm just gonna kill everybody and rule the world is what he wanted. He just got so power hungry, I guess. But he ended up dying peacefully. Like T'Challa even said, I can save you and we can do this the right way. He said, no, I don't deserve it. Whatever. Because he got to see Wakanda and how beautiful it really was.
Mm-hmm.
Although that scene was very beautiful, even though it was probably mostly CGI.
I'm getting to add on what you're saying. It's not that he got power hungry. He was looking at the world through angry eyes because he was in the worst part of the ghetto for his childhood. So,
It's
and
also
then seeing his father killed by somebody who is supposed to be having his father killed by somebody who's supposed to be a family member that he finds out about later on. That sets the tone for what his childhood is going to be because he's going to carry that grief and that anger with him all through his life. Because there was no answers to it.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying. He had no answers as to why.
It's also a little bit of a reflection of the character arc that he went through in Civil War, with the idea of revenge and revenge consuming you. And granted, it was a quick arc, you know.
Yeah.
But it kind of carries that lesson over into this.
I can appreciate that.
Despite we never got the answer about the flower. But I did kind of like how they're like, okay, well, we're gonna end things with kind of like let's open up things now. We've kind of seen the bigger picture. We're now going to open up our borders, which, you know, like I said before, like the idea of like, oh, how can nobody find these people? Grand scheme of things, I get why, because it's like, oh well, we're actually gonna do, you know what I mean, like we're gonna rectify this at the end by making Wakanda more available for people and more accessible and
which is what Killmonger wanted to do, but in a more angry light. You just have the weapons and the vibranium be for
aggressive
their
way, yeah, right,
eyes all over the world.
exactly.
Whereas T'Challa is going to be opening science establishments so that people of the lesser affordability communities can be included in becoming Earth's next great science.
Yep.
Right.
No, great thing.
I mean, the mid-credit scene was very just continuation of that, of them opening their borders. I love how like, oh yeah, Bucky's here, don't forget that. But more so, obviously, it's more of a setup, obviously, returning to setting up what's going to happen in Infinity War and just saying like, hey, Bucky's now progressed to the point where he doesn't need to be frozen, and he's starting to like acclimate himself and be somewhat normal again. So it's a step in the right direction. I mean, what do you think of the last couple of tidbits, Bobbit, with that stuff?
Oh, it's pretty cool. And like when I went seeing this in the theater, like seeing Bucky, that made everybody lose their mind in the theater.
I mean, everyone could be like, oh, where was Bucky during this whole thing? It's like, well, he was either frozen or he was just not in a good mental state. Clearly.
Well, like the whole him appearing thing, everybody was like, where in the fuck has he been?
Well, that's exactly.
Resting. Right. Taking a power nap. So I mean that pretty much wraps up Black Panther. I think I'll give my thoughts in a second. I'm gonna actually flip the script here. I'm gonna start with Bobbit this time, as far as his thoughts on overall Black Panther. And Bobbit, what would you rate Black Panther on a scale of 1 to 10?
Is it a Oscar worthy movie? No. But for what it is, it's an okay movie. It's not like the best Marvel movie that's ever came out, no. But it's also not the worst thing I've ever seen either. I've seen a lot of worst.
True.
But overall, I'm gonna give this lower than I did Homecoming. I'm giving this a 6.5.
All right. JP's like itching to get this off his chest. I can just tell from the Heather, I'll go with you then. What overall thoughts on Black Panther, and what would you rate it out of 10?
It's definitely not the worst one. It's a good movie. It's for me, it's one of the higher end middle of the road Marvel movies that they've done. So for me, the rating would probably be around a 5.75.
Okay, so almost a 6. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
JP.
Storytelling sucked. Sorry, too many fucking plot holes, man. Too many plot holes. For me, too many plot holes. This is my opinion. Don't like it, don't fucking care. Too many plot holes. The acting was pretty good. Chadwick Boseman's pretty good. This movie is definitely not an Oscar-rated movie, and I'm talking Best Picture.
Right.
It could have been up for nomination for probably cinematography, because they did have some pretty good practical effects as far as like screenshots and stuff. I can, you know, I clothing or the costume design, sure, could probably be up there, but my 4.7, 4.75, man. I cannot give it. This movie bored the literal fuck out of me because I had so many fucking questions. Like, didn't I? I'm sitting there watching this movie, and I was thinking about why in the fuck is this not making sense when they did this in Civil War. As soon as they did that fight scene, I'm like, I don't get it. Like, how does he have this power all of a sudden? I can buy the fact that his dad is too old and he takes over as the Black Panther for his father.
Yep.
Got it. But he has these powers during Civil War. Again, Frank said it. And I think he's talking about the flower petals. I don't think he should have. It just made no sense. It made no sense.
So just FYI, the awards that Black Panther was nominated for, besides Best Picture and Best Costume Design, was also Best Production Design, Best Original Score, Sound Mixing, and Sound Editing.
Yep. I again cannot. I had too many questions, and even if I go back and watch it again I'm still gonna have those same fucking questions. I can't get them out of my head. That's why I can't enjoy the movie, because there's so many fucking plot holes, and I blame the fucking writers for that. I literally do. They should have never introduced Black Panther in Civil War. They should have waited. They should have done that scene
In the end credits of this movie.
No, they should have done that scene at the beginning of the fucking movie instead of making fucking, what was it, Civil War 2.5 fucking hours long. Would have made so much more sense. And then I would have been like, oh, okay. But or having him be a little shit and sneak a fucking flower, and all of a sudden he has a fucking power. I don't know. I don't know. Fuck that. I just don't get it. Too many fucking plot holes.
All right, fair enough.
That's why I did.
I'm actually gonna go with the same rating as Bobbit and give it like a 6.5. For me, plot holes aside, I was able to look past that and see the bigger picture of things.
I get it.
Right, respectfully, I was able to see the bigger picture of what they were trying to accomplish and what they were trying to tell. Are there inconsistencies and small things here and there? Yes, to the point where you do kind of scratch your head. I'm not taking that away. But for me, I was able to kind of go past those and see what they were trying to accomplish bigger scale. I think that I think for me personally, this is probably my favorite cast in a standalone Marvel movie, as far as all of them. I'm not saying that like there are other actors I liked more than that, but there was obviously I had more of appreciation for other side actors, I should say, and actresses than the others. I think everyone knocked it out of the park for their role. I think that Killmonger. It's funny because this is like the third time I've seen this movie, and Killmonger, I feel like I remember being a better villain than he was the third time around. Not that he was incompetent or bad act. Like Michael B. Jordan was my favorite actor in the entire movie.
He did pretty good acting job.
I feel like there should have been just a little more weight, or a little bit, like I'm just wanting a little bit more out of him as far as his character backstory and stuff. His backstory made sense. He's a sympathetic character to an extent. He wants to right the wrongs, and I love everything about that. I think it's what makes him one of the better villains. But I just feel like I just need a little bit more of something.
Which is what I said at the beginning of this, that yes, Chadwick Boseman and Michael B. Jordan did great for their roles. However, they did not save the movie.
Yes. And taking everything into consideration that we talked about into this point in the movie, I still enjoyed it. And I still, for me, it's definitely high up there for me as far as not talking like any team ups. So just a standalone Marvel movie. For me, at this point, it's definitely up there as far as overall contenders. I don't think it's the best one by any stretch of the imagination, like Bob had said as well. But I probably line more in agreement with Heather's statement of like upper middle of the road ones for sure. But I wouldn't say that the writing was something I'd be writing home about, for lack of a better word.
I have a question, Connor.
Yeah.
Now that we since we know that Chadwick is no longer here, where would you go for the next one?
They're probably going to go the sister.
So Bob is, of course, referring to the fact that at this point, Chadwick Boseman, obviously in real life at the time of this recording, has passed away. We will see him 2 more times in the MCU as far as live action, and we will hear his voice one final time in the What If series. But obviously, the idea is that Black Panther 2, titled Wakanda Forever, is set to be released in November of 2022. So, and it's been very hush hush. I haven't heard I've heard a little bit of rumors and speculations, but the writing has been very, very airtight as far as what they're going to do with it. I think that, like Heather said, I think from a logic perspective, if we're talking lineage, I think Shuri would be probably the next one in line. But I do think that the beauty of or one of the advantages of this franchise is that you can go, you have a wide variety of options because you have like a tribe, you have a kingdom that you can kind of, if you don't want to use a familiar character, you can introduce a new one and be a new star. I mean, it's very, I applaud Marvel for not wanting to recast T'Challa in some aspects as a respect to Chadwick Boseman's performance. It's also a bit tricky on that side too. It's a hard one. I'd have to think about that for a while.
It could either be Shuri or it could be Nakia.
I mean, I wouldn't mind M'Baku from the Jabori tribe and be the first one from that tribe to, you know what I mean? But I trust them. I trust them. And I think they're going to do. I think they're going to do a good enough job to carry it on. But I mean, it's a tough. That's a tough thing to do with a beloved character, let alone a beloved actor. And it's just like, I do not envy the writers. I do not envy the writers that have to have that monumental task in front of them. But that being said, that's going to wrap up Black Panther for us this week, right here on the Marvel Roundtable. I want to thank Bob, JP, and Heather for joining us, as always. Any last-minute thoughts on this movie before we wrap it up this week?
Well, this movie, when it came out, and I will say it, the reason I believe it was nominated for Best Picture is because of the political
turmoil that was going on.
Just the political agenda that's been kind of going on over the last few years, and this kind of, not blaming, because I can understand why they did what they did. I personally think that's why they did it. I don't think it was. I'm just saying it. I don't think it was worthy of being Best Picture. That's all I'm saying.
I agree.
So, I don't hate the movie. Again, I don't hate the movie. It's too many plot holes for me to sit here and say this was a great fucking movie, because I can't. I do this shit with Star Wars. Ask Heather. I'm like, you can't do that, because I can find a plot hole. I can find a plot hole if I see it, and I can't watch a movie and then see something else and wonder, well, they just did the same thing. How come they couldn't do that? It just makes that's where I'm going with it. That's why I am the way I am with movies. I'm very critical of watching a movie, and it has to be, and I'll watch it and I'll watch all of them, because I want to understand why people love this shit so fucking much. I don't get it.
Well, it's what you take out of it, you know?
It. It's okay. That's all I wanted to say.
All good. All good. All right. With that being said, we're going to wrap up on this week's edition of the Roundtable. Again, thank you all for tuning in right here on youtube.com/hornygoat. And of course, the Horny Goat Podcast Network, where you can listen to us on your favorite podcasting platforms. When we come back next week on the Marvel Roundtable, we will be back here as we go back to oh man, Bob left us. We go back to Asgard as we've joined our favorite god of thunder, as Thor once again takes the center stage. At this time, he's got a lot of shit going on, not only trying to prevent his own world from crumbling, but a new revelation of a new sibling rears its ugly head as we get right into the final stages setting up for an Avengers Infinity War, as Taika Waititi takes his first directing role in the MCU, one that's going to prove very successful, as we take a look at Thor Ragnarok.